Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Noah here breaking down the NFL slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Week 10. So we're going to go through each position. I'm going to talk about 5 or 6 players that I'll really be targeting on each position. As the week's gone on since I recorded my first look video, I've really narrowed down my player pool to like 5 or 6 guys that I'm going to be pretty heavy on that are going to be core plays for me this week. We will talk about Draftkings and Yahoo. We'll go through each position. We'll go through quarterback on DraftKings, and we'll switch over to Yahoo, talk about quarterback on Yahoo. We'll do that for each position. Like I said, I'll try and hit on like 5 or 6 core plays. I don't want to make the video too long. I'm going to try and keep it under 30 minutes if possible. So just a few things I want to hit on before we do get started with the video. Obviously, if you're new to the channel, if you're someone that only watches my NFL videos, maybe don't watch my NBA videos, I do have a face cam now, and I will be recording with the face cam on all my videos. Figured this was the best way to do it since pretty much everybody now has a face cam. It just makes the videos a lot more enjoyable to watch when you can see the person talk and kind of talk through the players and stuff. So obviously, now that I have a face cam, I'm going to go back to the old format that I was doing where I pull up DraftKings and Yahoo. I'll just pull up the salaries, pull up the player pool. Figured this was the best way to do it rather than doing the slideshow that I've been doing before. So also want to tell you guys you can follow me on Twitter at DFS by Noah. I'm very active on Twitter. If you want to follow me over there, it would be greatly appreciated. Make sure you drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. If you're new, would appreciate if you would subscribe and click that notification bell so that way you get notified every time I upload. But let's go ahead and take a look at quarterback this week on DraftKings. So the 5 guys that I've really kind of keyed in on as we're heading into Sunday that I've really narrowed down my player pool to are Lamar Jackson, Jameis Winston, Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, and then as a salary saver, Ryan Tannehill at 5,100. So starting off with Lamar Jackson, I mean, it's a great spot against the Bengals. This Bengals defense is terrible. Lamar Jackson lit them up in Week 6 when they played. 236 passing yards, 152 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown, had 33 DraftKings points. He's a great play this week. He's going to be tough to get in cash games. We're going to talk about definitely like cash game construction as we go throughout the video. I'll talk about kind of who I like at cash games at each position. Lamar is obviously in play for cash, but I just don't know if I'm going to be able to get him in there because I want to spend up at running back for Christian McCaffrey. I want to try and get either Devontae Adams or Michael Thomas in my cash lineup. So probably going to have to save with a guy like Ryan Tannehill. But if you can find a way to get Jackson in your lineup and you like that for cash, obviously he's a great play here at 7,300. Jameis Winston I like a ton at home against the Cardinals. Right now this game has a 52 projected total. It's projected to be the highest scoring game on the slate. This is a great spot for Winston. Even if he throws 3-4 interceptions, I mean, the dude's going to throw for 300 yards and multiple touchdowns. Those interceptions don't really matter when you're throwing for multiple touchdowns and 300 yards. 3 straight games of at least 21 DraftKings points. I imagine he keeps that streak going today or on Sunday and gets over 20 DraftKings points. We know the Cardinals play fast. They don't have a good defense. Great spot for Winston here. Drew Brees also in a great spot at home against the Falcons. This Falcons defense is just so bad this season, one of the worst in the league. Only concern with this game is that the Saints are 14-point favorites right now. They opened as 11.5-point favorites, and it's been bet up to 14, so a lot of people are betting on the Saints here. I mean, they should blow this Falcons team out, so obviously that kind of caps Drew Brees' ceiling if he's not in a shootout, but still this game has a 51 projected total. It's going to be high scoring. We know the Saints are going to put up points. It's just a matter of can the Falcons keep up. If they can, then, I mean, Drew Brees could absolutely go off in this game. But I think just choosing between him and Winston, since Winston's projected in a closer game, like a closer scoring game, probably side with Winston at 6,800 since their game only has a 4.5-point spread right now. And the Buccaneers opened as 6-point favorites, and since then have been bet down to 4.5. So people think this is going to be a close game. That definitely makes Winston I would say a safer play, in my opinion. And then Matt Ryan, going back to that Falcons-Saints game, I mean, this game's just going to be high scoring. Whether the Falcons put up points or not, we know Matt Ryan is going to have to throw a ton in this game to keep up. He's definitely in play for 6,100. If I can get him in cash, I definitely would like to because I think he has an incredibly high floor in this game just with the amount of times he's going to throw the ball. But I feel like I'm probably going to have to save, and that's going to lead me to Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill only 5,100 at home against the Chiefs. This Chiefs defense has not been great this season. Right now, the Titans are underdogs in this game, so they're going to have to throw plenty. They're probably going to lose this game. They're going to have to throw. They're going to be trailing. And Tannehill's been pretty good so far since he's taken over for Marcus Mariota. Just 3 games starting over Mariota, 23, 19, and 28 DraftKings points. He went for 28 DK points last week, and his price dropped $200 on DraftKings, which really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I think for value, Tannehill's probably the top value on the slate, and for cash games, I think he's probably the guy I'm going to be locking in this week. I did play him in cash 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, when he went for like 19 DK points. Yeah, when he played the Buccaneers, I played him in cash that week. He was 5,100 that week, 5,100 again at home against the Chiefs. Ryan Tannehill, top value quarterback on the slate. It's pretty gross, but I think that's just how it is. But just running through the quarterback position again, Jackson, Winston, Breeze, Ryan, Tannehill. Those are the 5 guys I've really keyed in on in my player pool for this week. Going over to Yahoo, I think it's a bit different. Jackson's up to $40, and rarely do I pay up for quarterback on Yahoo. I think this is a position where you can find some mispriced players. There's always mispriced players at quarterback on Yahoo. And Jameis Winston, in my opinion, is that mispriced player this week. $31, he's the cash game quarterback for Yahoo. On Yahoo for me. In my main lineup, I will definitely have Winston in my main lineup. He's just way too cheap. He should be like $37, $38. So I love Winston on Yahoo. Obviously, I like the guys I've talked about before. Jackson, if you can get up to him, but in my main lineup, I don't think I'm going to be able to spend $40 at quarterback. Breeze at 34 makes a lot of sense. Love Winston at 31. Matt Ryan at 31 is also in play. I think Kyler Murray at 28 is probably one of the other great plays on Yahoo. Him and Winston both feel way underpriced. Love the matchup for Kyler Murray. So definitely Kyler Murray at 28. If you want to play Tannehill at 26, you can. But I feel like for Yahoo, I'm really keying in on Winston and Murray. Those are like the 2 guys that just feel way too cheap on Yahoo this week. So that's kind of how I'm looking at quarterback this week. Moving on to running back, Christian McCaffrey, top play this week. I'm going to jam him in cash games. He's going to be a part of my tournament player pool as well. He's just a great play this week. He was $10K last week, and people did not play him in cash games. They thought he was too expensive. He went for 40 DraftKings points. I think he was 50% owned in the single entry double ups last week. I imagine he'll probably be a little bit higher owned than that, but still there are going to be people that don't play McCaffrey in cash, which is a mistake. You should play him in cash. It's a great matchup. Packers have been very bad against the run this season. There should be enough value at receiver. There's some cheap running backs we'll talk about in a second. So just jam in Christian McCaffrey in your cash game lineup and really don't think twice about it. But now for tournaments, there are definitely other guys around McCaffrey's price that you could look to. Like Alvin Kamara, I like a lot here in tournaments. I love the matchup against the Falcons. With how well Latavius Murray has played these last few weeks, that's definitely going to cut into Kamara's workload. I do expect Kamara to lose a little bit of work to Latavius Murray, but still, Kamara's going to be the number 1 guy for the Saints. He's fully healthy. In tournaments, he makes a lot of sense at 8,200 here in a game that should be very high scoring. We know Kamara is going to get fed a ton in the passing game, and with the full PPR scoring on DraftKings, that for sure puts him in play for me at 8,200. A couple guys in this mid-range I really like. Marlon Mack's probably my favorite play, like in this 7K, 6K range. Love the matchup for him at home against the Dolphins. Dolphins' run defense has been absolutely terrible this season. We know this is a Colts team that wants to run the ball as much as possible. And as I'm recording this video on Friday, they are 12.5-point favorites. So this is projected to be a game where the Colts should win pretty easily, should have a lead for most of the game. So Mack should get fed just in the first half, should get fed in the second half when they're probably up with a big lead. So absolutely love Marlon Mack at 7K. I think he's firmly in play. Even though he doesn't get the pass game work, just with how good the matchup is, that definitely puts him over guys like Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell gets a ton of work in the passing game. Coming off an injury, he is questionable heading into the week. It seems he's likely that he's going to wind up playing, though. His status doesn't seem too in question. But still, I just like the matchup a lot more for Marlon Mack. Even though Marlon Mack doesn't get the pass game work that I would like, I just love that matchup against the Dolphins. So really like Mack at 7K. Jalen Samuels, now that it's been confirmed that James Conner is unlikely to play this week, Samuels even at 6,300, even though he saw over a $2,000 price bump on DraftKings, he's still in play for me this week. Got 13 catches last week, 13 targets, 13 for 73, only 8 carries, 10 rushing yards, so he was not very efficient on the ground. I don't expect him to be very efficient on the ground, but the work that he's going to get in the passing game is what really sets him over the top of most running backs, especially on DraftKings with it being full PPR scoring. So really like Samuels at 6,300. For cash games this week, I'm definitely going to be locking in Christian McCaffrey. The next guy we're about to talk about, David Montgomery, I'm for sure going to be locking in for cash. I just love this matchup for Montgomery. I think he's severely underpriced. He's been great these last 2 weeks, been getting the touchdowns. Week 8 against the Chargers, 27 carries, 135 yards, got a rushing touchdown. Also got 5 targets as well, which you'd like to see. And then last week against the Eagles in a tough matchup, still got 14 carries, 40 yards. Wasn't very efficient on the ground, but was able to find the end zone twice. He got 4 targets in that game. Much better matchup this week against the Lions. The Lions have been very bad this season versus the run, and just as of late. Only concern with Montgomery is that his pass game usage isn't what I would want it to be. We know the Bears are going to use Tariq Cohen a lot in the passing game, but the targets have been improving the last 2 weeks with 5 and 4 targets. This is projected to be a close game. Right now the spread, I believe, is 2.5. I think the Bears are favored by 2.5. Yeah, the Bears are favored by 2.5, so it should be a close game. Montgomery should get close to 20 touches, if not more than that. And at 5,300, just at that salary, he's going to be really hard to avoid it for cash game this week. So I think for cash, you're locking in McCaffrey, you're locking in Montgomery, and then you have to decide, do I pay up for a guy like Kamara, or do I go to like Marlon Mack or at 7K, Jalen Samuels at 6,300 as your RB3? I think there are going to be some people that drop down to Ronald Jones as their RB3, as their flex play. Me personally, I don't think I'm going to be looking to Ronald Jones this week, even if he is popular. He is expected to be the starting running back for the Bucs. It is a great matchup at home against the Cardinals. Jones doesn't get a ton of work in the passing game, though. Only 2 targets last week. Montgomery at least will see probably 4 to 5 targets. I just don't know if I need to go to Ronald Jones this week. They're just better plays in my opinion. I feel like he's just really risky, even at 4,300. There's a lot of people talking him up this week, and me personally, I don't think I'm going to be going there. So I really like McCaffrey at the top, Montgomery, and then probably trying to get either Jalen Samuels or Marlon Mack as my 3 running backs for cash games this week. So that's how I'm looking at running back for DraftKings. Going over to Yahoo, it's kind of the same story. Definitely going to be jamming in McCaffrey at $41, but there's a lot of value at receiver on Yahoo this week, so I think paying up for 2 running backs makes a lot of sense. Whether you want to go to Barkley, Cook, or Kamara, I mean, those 3 guys all project probably the same. I'd probably lean Dalvin Cook just because I think he's the number 2 running back in fantasy this season. His workload is so secure. This is projected to be a close game, so Cook should be out there for 75-80% of the snaps. That's how it was last week against the Chiefs. Although he didn't see, or he wasn't very efficient in that game, still got 21 carries, 71 rushing yards, 7 targets in that game. He's going to get 15 to 20 carries, 5 to 6 targets every week. So I think jamming in McCaffrey and Cook in Yahoo or on Yahoo this week makes a lot of sense because of the value we're going to talk about at receiver. But if you want to drop down, you got guys like Marlon Mack at $26, who I really like on Yahoo. I think going probably McCaffrey, Mack, Cook, if you can find a way to fit that in. If you're really trying to go cheap at receiver, McCaffrey, Cook, Mack makes a lot of sense. Le'Veon Bell at 23 is going to be a guy I have exposure to on Yahoo. I just think he's a little bit underpriced. Even with that knee injury, I just like the matchup against the Giants. Giants' run defense not been that great this season. Bell just feels a bit underpriced, $23. Then at $20, you got Montgomery and Samuels. Between those 2 guys, I would definitely prefer Jalen Samuels. Although Yahoo isn't full PPR scoring, Samuels still last week got 12.8 fantasy points on Yahoo. Obviously on DraftKings is a lot more valuable. But still, his workload is going to be very secure with James Conner out, or at least not expected to play. Their backup running back, Benny Snell, is going to be out as well. So it's going to be Samuels getting all the volume. He's for sure in play on Yahoo. You have Jones on Yahoo at $15. I just don't think you need to do that this week. That just feels really thin. Running back's definitely a position I'm going to be trying to spend as much as possible on Yahoo this week, because when we get to receiver in a few, we'll talk about all these value receivers I like. But talking about some of the expensive receivers this week, there's 2 that I'm really keying in on: Michael Thomas and then Devontae Adams at $6,900. So I mean, Michael Thomas, I don't really need to tell you that he's a great play here. I mean, he's a great stud receiver. This is a great matchup against the Falcons. The Falcons have been one of the worst secondaries, or have had one of the worst secondaries so far this season. Thomas just sees massive volume every week, at least 11 targets in 4 straight games. Getting Drew Brees back is obviously going to help him. We saw that last week with Drew Brees in against the Cardinals. 11 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown, 30 DraftKings points. Thomas has that kind of upside here. If this game can somehow stay close, I mean, Michael Thomas could go for 40 DraftKings points, and I would not be surprised at all. It's going to be really hard to get him in cash games this week, though, especially if you're paying up for McCaffrey. So I think saving $1,400 and dropping down to Devontae Adams makes a lot of sense. Last week, I was very high on Keenan Allen because I thought he was severely underpriced. That didn't go as I thought it would. Devontae Adams is kind of going to be my like Keenan Allen of this week. I think Devontae Adams is just severely underpriced on DraftKings at 6,900, and he's probably one of my favorite plays overall. First game back from injury last week against the Chargers, Adams was absolutely fed. 11 targets, 7 catches, 41 yards. Played a ton of snaps. This is a game that projects to be close. The Carolina Panthers should be without James Bradberry. He is questionable for this game. He is their top corner. So if Bradberry is out, becomes an even better matchup for Adams. This is a much better spot than it was last week against the Chargers. Absolutely love Devontae Adams, one of my favorite receivers on DraftKings this week. Definitely going to be locking him in cash games, at least if I can. If I can get to Thomas, I might try and get to Michael Thomas, but I feel like I'm going to have to save, and that's where Devontae Adams is going to come in at 6,900. But other than like Thomas and Adams, I don't see myself, like, at least for like core plays, really going to like the 6K range. The 6K range is like kind of dead to me. I think I'm either going to be paying up for Thomas or Adams. Maybe like Mike Evans or Chris Godwin could be firmly in play. But I do want to talk about a lot of the value that we have at this position. So at 5,200, one of the value receivers I really like is Christian Kirk. I think he's definitely going to be a cash game staple for me this week. His volume is just so secure. He gets anywhere from 5 to 10 targets every week. Larry Fitzgerald has just not been doing so well, just as of late for the Cardinals. So Kirk's going to get the volume. With Fitzgerald struggling, the volume should be there. It's a great matchup against a terrible Buccaneers secondary. Love Christian Kirk at 5,200. I think he's underpriced on DraftKings. I think with the full PPR scoring, Jamison Crowder at 5K is firmly in play against the Giants. He's really cheap on Yahoo. We'll talk about him in a second over there. But I do like Crowder a lot at 5K. And then under 5K, there's a lot of value here. Jarvis Landry is just gonna be a guy that sees a lot of volume. Last 2 weeks, 10 and 13 targets. Trey White will probably shadow Odell Beckham, or he might not. I don't know if he'll shadow him, but he definitely will see a lot of Odell Beckham, which should lead to Jarvis Landry getting plenty of targets. That was kind of the case last week. Chris Harris shadowed Odell Beckham, which led to Landry getting 13 targets, 6 catches, 51 yards, and a touchdown. It's a much tougher matchup this week. It's not a great game to target. I mean, that game has one of the lower totals on the slate. So for cash, Landry's, even with the target volume he gets, probably not a guy I look to. You got Devontae Parker at 4,800, who I really like as a value receiver. With Preston Williams out, that's going to open up plenty of targets for Devontae Parker in a game where the Dolphins are most likely going to have to throw a ton. He's going to be a core play for me this week, definitely going to be in my player pool. Same with Tyler Boyd against the Orioles, against the Ravens, at home against the Ravens. Another game where the Bengals are probably going to be trailing and going to have to throw a lot. It is confirmed that A.J. Green's not going to play this week, so we should continue to see massive volume for Tyler Boyd. Last time he did face the Ravens, he did really struggle. 7 targets, so the volume was there, but only 3 catches for 10 yards. I believe he was shadowed by Marlon Humphrey for most of the game. There's a chance that happens again here, so I wouldn't say it's a great matchup for Tyler Boyd, but the volume is clearly going to be there. Even with Ryan Finley at quarterback, the Bengals are they're going to be forced to throw in this game. So Tyler Boyd is firmly in play at 4,700. Curtis Samuel, another receiver that's just too cheap on DraftKings at 4,600, continues to see great volume every week. 6, 11, 6 targets just the last 4 weeks. The volume is clearly there. He's firmly in play for cash games this week if you want to go to him at 4,600. If you're playing Ryan Tannehill and you want to stack him with one of his receivers, I think I'd prefer A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's only 4,300 on DraftKings. He's another value you could look to. We do know that Brandon Cooks is out, so Josh Reynolds is really cheap on DraftKings. He's 3,800. He could definitely be a value receiver. Should have a pretty sizable role now with Cooks out. We should see him play a lot in 2 wide receiver sets. We know Cooper Kupp's mainly going to play out of the slot, so it's going to be Reynolds and Brandon Cooks, Reynolds and Robert Woods on the outside. 3,800 for Josh Reynolds. If you want to go there, I think he's a fine value receiver this week. For cash games, it's probably a bit thin. I don't think you need to go that cheap because you have guys like Boyd, Parker, who probably project just better. But Reynolds is definitely in play if you need to save. He would be my favorite value receiver, like under 4K, if you were looking that cheap. Now let's quickly go over the receiver position on Yahoo. So I did talk about how I really wanted to spend at running back, so that means we're going to really be saving at receiver. Just before we get to some of those values, Michael Thomas is $37 on Yahoo. Next most expensive receiver is $32 Mike Evans. It's going to be very tough to get Thomas in on Yahoo, but I mean, he's a great play. Obviously, it's a great matchup. Devontae Adams is 28 on Yahoo. I really like him. Chris Godwin's 29. I think he's a very strong play on Yahoo as well. But I really want to talk about some of the value we have at this position. Just $20 and below. At $20, I really like Allen Robinson. I think he is in a great bounce back spot after really struggling last week. It was a good matchup for Robinson against the Eagles. Only went for 1.1 fantasy points, 1 catch for 6 yards, getting 5 targets. Much better spot this week against the Lions, a game that should stay close. I do like Allen Robinson to bounce back this week. He feels a bit underpriced on Yahoo at $20. But let's talk about some of these values we have. There's just so many that I like once you get like 17 and below. So you got Tyler Boyd at 16. You got DJ Moore at 16. You got Christian Kirk at 16. Curtis Samuel for $15. Larry Fitzgerald, even though he's really struggled lately, is so cheap at $15. You got Landry and Crowder both at $14, who are firmly in play for value. Devontae Parker, all the way down here at $13, definitely in play. I'm pretty sure Josh Reynolds is minimum salary, so he's another guy you could look to. But I think my favorite value receivers on Yahoo would probably be, I'd probably have to say Christian Kirk, 16. I really like. I'm just going to be very high on Kirk this week. I love him on Draftkings. He's firmly in play on Yahoo as well. And then Devontae Parker, all the way down here at $13. I expect him to see plenty of volume this week with Preston Williams out. I played him last week in cash games. He was pretty good. 4 catches, 57 yards, and a touchdown in a game where the Dolphins should be trailing and have to throw a ton with the Dolphins pretty thin at receiver right now. Devontae Parker for only $13. Really good value on Yahoo. So let's just look at see if you want to really spend at running back on Yahoo this week and go with McCaffrey, Cook, and Kamara, just those 3 guys. Or if you wanted to go like, we'll do McCaffrey, Cook, and Mack because I really like Mack this week at 26. And then if you plug in some value receivers, it's definitely going to be scary to not have any exposure to like these top stud receivers. But if you want those expensive running backs, is kind of the sacrifice you're going to have to take. But if you go with Kirk, if you go with Devontae Parker down here at 13, if I can find him, you go with Kirk at 16, Parker at 13, and then maybe you go with like Crowder at 14. That leaves you $18 remaining per player for a quarterback, tight end, and defense. And there are plenty of cheap defenses and cheap tight ends that I like this week. So you could definitely take that route on Yahoo. I probably wouldn't go full like team gem at running back. I'd probably go McCaffrey, Mack, and then maybe like one of either Thomas, Evans, Godwin, or Adams. I'd want one of those expensive receivers. But if you really want to do the team gem at running back and just play all the stud running backs, there's plenty of value at receiver on Yahoo this week. And I think just keying in on my top 3 values, Christian Kirk at 16, Devontae Parker at 13, and then I think Jamison Crowder at 14 really stands out on Yahoo. Even though it's not full PPR scoring, Crowder just gets so much volume every week. It's a great matchup. It's a game that should stay close. I do like Crowder quite a bit. But now we're going to quickly talk about tight end and defense. It's not going to be as many tight end and defense plays as I've been talking about lately, or I've been talking about at running back and receiver just because tight end's not a position that's as deep. Obviously, this is a position where Travis Kelce at the top is going to really stand out for a lot of people, but if you're playing like in cash, he's just not. It's just hard to get Travis Kelce at 6,400. If you want to get McCaffrey, Thomas, those stud running backs and receivers, you have to sacrifice somewhere, and there's some value that I like at tight end. So talking about the values that I'll be looking to this week, there's about 3 or 4 I'm really targeting. Jack Doyle at home against the Dolphins, 3,600. I do like quite a bit. O.J. Howard's been terrible this season, but at home against the Cardinals, best possible matchup for O.J. Howard. I don't know if I'd play him in cash because we're about to talk about a guy I like that's a little bit cheaper that I feel a little bit safer with, but this is the best possible spot for O.J. Howard. If he doesn't come through here, the dude might just be complete dust, but Howard's in play at 3,300 for me. He's definitely going to be a guy I have exposure to if I'm playing multiple lineups. But I think for cash games this week, I'm probably leaning on Mike Gesicki at 3,100. So Gesicki's like a very athletic tight end. They use him a lot like in the slot. Rarely is he out there to block. When he's out there to run routes and to catch passes. Last week against the Jets, he got 6 catches for 95 yards, 15.5 Draftkings points. I think he's probably the top value tight end I'll be looking to in a game where the Dolphins are going to have to throw a ton. The Dolphins are thin at receiver right now. They're thin with their pass catchers. No Preston Williams. The Colts have actually struggled to the tight end position this season. So I really like Gesicki. He's probably my favorite value tight end on DraftKings this week. He's also very cheap on Yahoo. We'll talk more about that in a second, but really like Gesicki at 3,100. I think for tight end, I'm really keying in on the values here. I like Olsen, or not Olsen, or I guess you could go to Olsen, but I really like Jack Doyle, OJ Howard, and Mike Gesicki, especially Mike Gesicki. I think he's probably going to be the guy that I play in cash games this week, just trying to save. Also, want to talk about Red Ellison real quick. Red Ellison is really cheap, minimum salary for a tight end at $2,500. It's already been confirmed that Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram are both going to be out this week for the Giants. So a $2,500 Red Ellison makes plenty of sense if you're really just wanting to punt tight end. In a matchup with the Jets, you could look to him. I think you get a lot more upside just trying to get up to Gesicki. I think Gesicki is just a much more athletic tight end, much faster tight end, just gives you more upside. But if you're trying to full punt the position and really jam in those expensive running backs and receivers, Red Ellison is in play for the minimum. But let's go ahead and talk about some tight ends on Yahoo. It's kind of the same story. Don't really see myself paying up. I didn't talk about Mark Andrews. He'd probably be my favorite pay up tight end, honestly, for $5,200 on DraftKings, $21 on Yahoo. But I really like the value here. You got OJ Howard at 14, Jack Doyle at 14. I think Gerald Everett might see some more volume this week with Brandon Cooks out. So at 14, you could look to him. And then I do want to talk about Gesicki. Gesicki's $11 on Yahoo at tight end. He's probably my favorite value at this position. I think he's just way too cheap. I mean, great matchup. Going to have to throw a ton. Love the saving salary at tight end. I usually do that every week to get in those stud RBs and raw receivers. So Gesicki's the guy I'm really keen in on tight end this week. But let's go ahead and talk about defense real quick, and then we'll end the video. So just looking at defense, I've kind of narrowed down my player pool to about 3 or 4 defenses. I usually don't play too many defenses. My favorite cheap defense is definitely the Browns at home against the Bills. I just think the Browns are in a really good spot. Josh Allen will turn the ball over. He'll take sacks. The Browns should be able to get some pressure on him. Really like just targeting cheap home defenses. I think the Steelers are firmly in play at $2,600. Jared Goff on the road. We've seen how bad Jared Goff is when he's on the road. Definitely by far my favorite 2 defenses are the Steelers and the Browns. But if you want to pay up, if you want to go that route, be contrarian and pay up, the Colts make a lot of sense at $3,500 if you're not playing any Dolphins this week. Even if you are playing like Gesicki, I wouldn't mind playing the Colts defense at all because you could definitely see the Colts get a defensive touchdown and then Gesicki still comes through for you. But I really like saving with the Browns and the Steelers. Those are kind of the 2 defense I've keyed in on DraftKings. On Yahoo, though, their defensive pricing is a lot different. They are really bad about pricing up defenses. So my top defense on Yahoo by far is the Colts. The Colts are only $14. They're the same price as the Bucs, the Titans. They're just way too cheap. Even if I'm playing Gesicki at $11, I don't mind playing the Colts defense in the same lineup. Just love the spot for the Colts. Facing a bad Dolphins team that's probably going to turn the ball over plenty. They're firmly in play. If you really want to save, though, you do have the Browns at 13. Maybe the Cowboys at $12 in that Sunday night game you could target. Let's see what the Steelers are. I think the Steelers are really expensive. Yeah, the Steelers are all the way up to $19, so it's going to be tough to get them in there. Probably the Colts are what I'm really keen in on Yahoo at $14. But I think that's it for the position-by-position breakdown, guys. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this new format to the videos. I do really appreciate you watching. I tried to break down as much as possible just in the amount of time that I record. I'm not sure how long this video is. It's probably way too long, but hopefully you guys found this video very informative. Hopefully you guys got a lot of value out of this video. Like I said, I appreciate you watching. Make sure you drop a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at DFS by Noah if you have not done that yet. I would greatly appreciate it. Very active over on Twitter, guys. But good luck this week. Hit me up on Twitter if you have any questions. Comment down below if you have any questions as well. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.